During this segment of our program today, two guests with us. We have Dr. Janet Lee Mitchell. She's written a book called Out-of-Body Experiences. And Jim Lippard, who is the chairman of the Phoenix Skeptics. And I welcome both of you to the program today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Let's talk a bit about out-of-body experiences. I've heard this term many times. What are they?
That's an experience where a person can see outside of visual range. They have perception, decision-making abilities, and memory.
Can you be a little more specific? How would I know if I was having one of these experiences, for example?
You would be able to see from a point of view other than from behind your eyes.
I still don't understand what that means. Can you be a little more specific about that?
Okay. You would feel as if you were in another location in space. You might feel like you're in another room, in another town, or further out into the universe.
And what is the benefit of feeling like this?
The benefit seems to be it has a profound effect on your outlook on life, especially your views concerning death. About 80% of the people who have this experience no longer fear death.
Why is that?
They seem to think that if they have an ability to move some aspect of themselves independently from their body, that part may be able to go on when the body is destroyed.
Do the people who believe in these experiences have a religious bent, a religious background, or do they not have one?
Not necessarily. People from all walks of life and all belief systems. This could happen to anyone, anytime.
Now, I have met people who do this for a living. They help people have out-of-body experiences. Is that... how do you do that? I don't understand. Can you help somebody to realize that they're having an experience? Can you help force an experience to happen? What happens?
I don't know I don't know about teaching people to have this experience. I know that when I was in the laboratory, a man came and said that he had the experience under his conscious control, and he wanted to know what his physical body was doing while he was having that experience. So we took physiological measurements of his body during those times, and that was the data that was analyzed to come to the conclusions in this book.
Okay. Jim, now you are the chairman of the Phoenix Skeptics. What are the Phoenix Skeptics?
The Phoenix Skeptics is a group that investigates paranormal phenomena from a scientific point of view. We also act as a media resource, providing information that we've collected, and information from sources such as the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, which is an international organization. And we also encourage critical thinking skills in individuals.
Do you believe in out-of-body experiences?
Well, I believe that there is such a thing as an out-of-body experience, and I don't think there's any question that people have these perceptions. My point of view is that the interpretation of these experiences is that it's a mistake to jump to the conclusion that something is actually leaving the body, and that this is possibly explained by from a psychological perspective.
What is leaving the body? I hear this expression, too, about leaving the body, or people believe they are, out-of-body experience. You're leaving your body. Is it possible to leave your body?
That's the state of the research at this point. We want to know if anything that we can detect leaves the body. We don't know that yet. Most people in the world who are studying this phenomenon, we're talking about 15 people maybe, most of them are studying psychological aspects of the phenomenon. My approach is, if we're going to call it out-of-body experience, then we should do research which will indicate whether or not something detectable goes out of the body. And if we can't find anything, then we should take the psychological approach.
Now, how does this happen? I'm still not clear as to, do I go to somebody's office? Do I go to a time tunnel? How do you do this? How do you have one of these experiences? You're just sitting on the bed one day and all of a sudden you feel like you're in another place? How does this work?
This could happen spontaneously, or some people have it under conscious control. They can do it in different techniques. These experiences are on a continuum, so there's no one particular way to do it.
It sounds like something you could do by taking LSD or by thinking hard or having a good imagination. It doesn't sound like something that is particularly unusual or spiritual or anything like that.
it could probably happen under drugs. For instance, the man that I worked with in the laboratory would simply sit there, and oftentimes he'd be smoking a cigar when he would be going and looking at another location and identifying targets. So you can go all the way from like Bob Monroe to getting into a vibratory state and very relaxed and in meditation, or you can simply decide that you want to do this and you can project your consciousness out there, find something, look at it, and then go there later in the body and verify whether you were right or wrong. You can practice this experience.
Jim, what do you think of that?
Well, there are, in normal consciousness, we have perceptions of our body, and in states such as meditation or falling asleep and so forth, you can lose track of where your body is, and this gives the illusion of say floating or falling. And I believe that this is similar to what is occurring in an out-of-body experience, that the person is basically recreating the outside world in his mind and simply has the illusion of being in another location.
Where do you get the idea that this is something to be studied? I'm not saying we shouldn't study anything. Maybe we should study everything. But specifically, why out-of-body experiences? Why do we study them?
The reason I studied them was because a hard rock miner out here in Arizona left $250,000 in a handwritten will, and he wanted that to be given to someone who could photograph the soul at death. Now, no one could come up with that kind of technology, so this case went all the way to the Supreme Court and was fought over for years who would get this $250,000. It turned out that the American Society for Psychic Research in New York got that money. So it was up to us to determine, does something survive death? And we had two different approaches to that question, and the approach that I was most involved in was in the laboratory looking at out-of-body experiences on the basis, if something can leave the body while you're alive with perception, with decision-making abilities, and with memory, maybe that aspect leaves when the body is destroyed. That's how I got involved in the work.
And we're going to take a break here. We're going to find out what you think about all this at 258-KFYI or 258-5394. Maybe you've had an experience like this, or maybe you think it's crazy. I don't know. We'll find out from you. We'll come back with John and Theodora. The phones are lighting up already. 258. Talking about out-of-body experiences with Dr. Janet Lee Mitchell and with Jim Lippard, who is the chairman of the Phoenix Skeptics. Jim, you and the Phoenix Skeptics investigate claims like these all the time. Do you think that people really have these experiences, or do you think it's their imagination?
Well, we haven't been in existence for very long, so we haven't done a whole lot of investigating yet. But I think that people are sincere in their reports as to exactly what the cause of it is. That I believe that's psychological.
But do you think they know what they're reporting, or do you think it's their imagination that they, to my guess is that people have a vivid imagination. I don't believe this really happens.
Well, I think imagination could be part of it. There are a lot of related phenomena, such as lucid dreaming, where you dream and you realize that you're dreaming, and you can alter what happens in your dream. Certain drug-induced experiences, I think, are similar. But one of the cases which I think shows that it's not something that's actually leaving the body is a case described by Gabbard and Twemlow in a book called With the Eyes of the Mind, where a doctor came home and was tired, so he laid down on his side to go to sleep, and after a while he became uncomfortable and rolled over onto his back. Now, as he was falling asleep, he suddenly had the perception that he was looking at his body from the side. However, his body was still turned on the side, and when he woke up, he was on his back. So his perception was apparently inaccurate.
Let's go to the phones. We have a whole full bank of phone calls here, and people have a variety of experiences and opinions here at 258-KFYI or 258-5394. This is Theodora from Phoenix. Hello.
Hello, Tom. How you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Man, I got on the Tom Leykis show.
You made it in.
Yeah, really. I'm surprised. I kind of agree with the skeptic, and I'd like to know where to sign up, because I think drugs is where it's at as far as that goes. Some excellent drugs brought me into a hospital, and a priest dropped some stuff on my face. Next thing you know, I was back in tune with it, but before that, I was standing over top of it all, and I'm sure it was whatever they gave me.
Do you believe in out-of-body experiences?
I think it was like the skeptic said. It has to be a perception that may or may not be an illusion, depending upon who gave you what drugs.
Do you think drugs have something to do with it?
Either whatever is created by the body to deal with a trauma, or something the feel-good doctor at the local ER gave you when you got hauled in there. It has sure helped a lot of religions get off the ground.
Out-of-body experiences.
Someone came up with a grand idea somewhere.
Well, I think in some religions, the only out-of-body experience you have is at the end of your life, when all of a sudden you leave your body. I don't think most religions would instruct that people have them while they're living their mortal lives. Do you?
I don't know. But I wanted to ask the lady what she knows about Curlian photography.
I haven't studied Curlian photography. I want to speak to the issue of this being a psychological phenomenon. If it is, this is the only mental image or imagination that actually can go to another place, get information, which can later be verified. If it is, it's the only mental image that can go to another place and actually be seen by other people there. This is very different from any mental imagery that I've ever studied in psychology.
Psychology, yeah. Well, another good religion. Yeah, okay. All right, where do I go sign up to be a skeptic?
You can either write Phoenix Skeptics, Post Office Box 62792, Phoenix, zip code 85082, or you can call 437-3778.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks for the call.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye. 258-KFYI is our number. 258-5394. Susie in Phoenix. Hello.
Hi.
Hi there.
I just want to say that I strongly do believe in out-of-body experience because I have experienced it. When I was 11 years old, I was sleeping one night and got cold, so I got up and walked through our house while I was asleep and went and sat by a heater. And I apparently stepped on a nail, and my parents came in. They were amazed that I never woke up. They carried me to my bed, took the nail out of my foot, bandaged it, and again, they were still amazed I hadn't woke up through any of it. The very next morning, I woke up, and I went to them and told them all about stepping on the nail, them taking care of me, and they were amazed. They said, well, how could you know this? You never woke up. And I said, well, I was out of my body the whole time watching you. And I guess from that point on, there's been no doubt in my mind that you can go out of your body and experience things, because I never felt the pain from the nail or any of it. There was no emotional attachment to my body, but I was definitely aware of everything that transpired.
Well, that doesn't sound to me like it's an out-of-body experience, but rather either sleepwalking or...
No, because I could see my body down there. I viewed the whole thing.
Were you viewing it from another perspective, from some location outside of your body?
I was right above it, yes.
Okay, so then it was the out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
And what effect has this had on your outlook on life after that, Dan?
Well, at the time, at being 11, it didn't hit me as, being spiritual or a phenomenon. It just happened. And now I'm definitely pursuing hypnosis. I believe in parapsychology, metaphysics, all of it, because having experienced it and remembering it, there's really no way you can just set it aside and say it doesn't exist.
Susie, thank you for the call.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. We're going to continue this conversation here at 258-KFYI or 258-5394. Looking over at the screen, I think we're about divided evenly between the skeptics and the people who claim they've had these experiences. We're going to find out what you think coming up. 258-5394 is our number, 258-KFYI. And we continue with our guest. We're talking with Dr. Janet Lee Mitchell. She's the author of the book Out-of-Body Experiences, and Jim Lippard, who is the chairman of the Phoenix Skeptics, at 258-5394 or 258-KFYI. This is Elizabeth in Scottsdale. Hello.
Hi.
Hi there.
You know, if I could astral project, I'd project myself right over there and give you a big hug.
Oh.
Because you're so cute.
Uh-oh.
Listen, getting serious. I've had a few weird experiences, and it's always left me with a fear of maybe I'm going off the edge. Maybe I'm crazy. I've always had this fear. The worst experience I had was about 7 years ago, and I had an ulcer. You know, worrying too much, and I had a bleeding ulcer. And I went into shock. So this out-of-body, so-called strange experience that I had was probably due to being in shock. Either that or I'm a Looney Tune. I don't know which.
Or maybe both.
Oh, yeah. That could be. You know, that's right. I even checked myself in the hospital a few times in my life. Ran myself through every test imaginable, and they always sent me home. And I'm puzzled. You know, I just don't know. I guess it's not important. I'm not afraid of dying. The living is scary. Your guests, do they have any comment? The skeptic, what do you think? Hello?
Yes. Well...
You agree with me? There must be some kind of a chemical problem in the system that made me feel like I was soaring away from my body.
Well, in a case like that, which I think there's a physical cause there which you can directly attribute it to.
That's what I choose to believe myself. Okay, well, this is interesting.
I'd like to add something. I think that there's a powerful and fundamental human experience here. It's an emerging ability that we have to move independently from our body. The psychological and psychiatric community might have us believe that we're Looney Tunes if this happens, but that may be their short-sightedness.
I don't mean you, ma'am. I believe in parapsychology. I've done some study on that.
Oh, I didn't think that at all.
No, I'm glad. I wouldn't want to offend you at all. I'm just speaking for myself personally. I do not want to believe I'm a Looney Tune, and so I'm not on drugs, and I don't drink, and I don't pot or any of that stuff. So I'm not chemically dependent, so the only thing I can think is I'm mad as a hatter.
Well, we're led to believe that in this society because people are not studying human experiences and abilities and our conscious evolving abilities. So we're led to believe that if we have an experience that is not fit into the scheme of the way things are supposed to be, that there's something wrong with us. But I don't think that's right. I think that we need to study more of these kind of experiences so that we can move forward in our conscious evolution at this point. Only $1.5 to $2 million is spent in this country at this time for this kind of research.
Well, I know the Russians are way ahead of us on this.
So it's really a shame that we can't have more research on who we are and how we operate.
Thank you for the call, Elizabeth. We move on here at 258-5394. Mike in Phoenix, hello.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask the doctor a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
She said several times that this process allows people to retrieve information from remote locations. And then she also said that it allows the person to be seen in that remote location. I'd like to know who's doing all these studies and why isn't this information being published?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked me that question. This work is published. It just came out on Mass Market from Ballantine in my new book, and that's a guide to everything you want to know about what's been done around this experience.
Right. What I want to know is how come it's
century.
not published in any of the reputable scientific journals?
It is.
Which ones?
There's 5 basic parapsychological journals in the world. The Journal for the American Society for Psychic Research, the Journal for the Society of Psychic Research in England, the European Journal, the Journal of Parapsychology that comes out of Duke or, down in North Carolina, that group.
And who's doing the independent testing? I mean, has it been replicated by independent laboratories?
The out-of-body experiences, they're studied in different parts of the world in the laboratories. Now, we replicated our own work in New York City.
But who was the independent lab that was overseeing your work is what I'm asking.
The American Society for Psychic Research. It's been around for about 100 years, and it's the major research facility in this country.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the call. Appreciate it. 258-5394. Dennis in Mesa at 545 on KFYI. Hello.
Yeah, I would like to be as brief as possible. I want to relate my supposed out-of-body experience. I'm a skeptic on it. And a small comment. Without going into great detail, I had what seemed to be an out-of-body experience when I was in the emergency room at the hospital. And I realized at the time, and have ever since, it was simply a drug-induced experience from the chemicals that they put in me. I had a broken arm, and when they released a tourniquet on my arm and let the chemicals go from my arm, I could feel it going up my shoulder up to my brain, and sure enough, when it hit my brain, I had this seemingly out-of-body experience. And it was typical of the things that I've heard, where it felt like I was floating above my own body, and I could hear the voices of my brother and the doctor and the nurse, as well as my own voice echoing through a tunnel. And when I would talk, I could hear myself talking from another area. And I've heard a lot of people say this kind of thing when they've had an automobile accident or something to that effect, some sort of trauma. And I asked the doctor about it later, and he said it's typical, and that it's drug-induced, as simple as that. And I'm really skeptical of it. My comment on it is, I think a point Tom missed. Tom, you had said that possibly people were using this as a crutch.
I think they use all kinds of things as crutches. Yeah.
Well, I think it goes further than that. I think it's plain old-fashioned greed. Just like greed for money, people are greedy for experiences. And it's pretty fantastic that we have the five senses, and we can see light rays and hear sound waves and have touch and so on. But for some people, I think their lives are so empty that they can't accept that's enough, and they have to search out something else. Just like a millionaire never gets a big enough yacht. There's always somebody that's got a bigger yacht, and there's always somebody that has to have a better psychic experience or something else. Just plain old-fashioned greed.
I'd like to say something here. It is our experience as we know it. That's the fundamental truth of our being. So you had the experience of being out of your body. Why do you invalidate that experience?
As far as I can tell, it was just drug-induced, just like a dream or anything else.
But then you say that it could happen in an accident. And you can't say that all of these are drug-induced because it just doesn't happen like that for most people. That's the way it happened for you. But that's why you invalidate your personal experience.
I invalidate it because I think the only reason I would want to chase something like that is because I would feel that it might be better than what I've got. And I think that the fact that I can see is 100 times more valuable than any out-of-body experience could ever be, so why even chase it?
Now, how long ago did you have this experience?
It was about 15 years ago.
And you still remember? That's interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was very vivid, but I can't say that it was pleasant either. That sick-to-the-stomach feeling and all that went along with it is not worth it.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Dennis, I thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate the call. This is Walt in Phoenix on KFYI. Hello.
Yeah, hello. How you doing?
Doing okay.
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, I think that out-of-body experiences, at least the ones that have been related to me, are nothing more than a function of the brain. The brain's made up of chemicals and electrical charges and so on and so forth. And you use that almost daily to form pictures in your mind of various things that are described to you, and I think it's nothing more than that. Second of all, when you talk about an out-of-body experience, you're assuming that there's something in the body to leave it, and I don't think there's any evidence of that either. Would either one of them care to comment on that?
Yes, I would. I did physiological measurements on people who were reportedly out of their bodies and bringing back accurate information from a distance. And we found that there was a loss of electrical activity in the brain in the EEG. It sort of flattened out into a low voltage type of phenomenon. And there were no eye movements, so this didn't look like a dream physiologically at all. It looked more like there was some loss of electrical energy or activity from the brain. We're talking microvolts here, of course, but the finding was over quite a bit of data, and also it was more pronounced on the right hemisphere than the left hemisphere. So if your more intuitive self is in the right hemisphere, it looked like that this part of your brain was more affected when one reported this experience.
Yes, but the loss of electrical power in the brain would indicate to me that whatever is happening was a function of the brain. And what would it be? What would there be in the body that would leave the body to have an out-of-body experience?
Some people talk about mental probes. Some people talk about attention units. Some people talk about just a point of consciousness out there in space.
Which is all very nondescript. I mean, that can be anything. You're not talking about anything concrete that you can explain.
That's the problem with the research at this time. You see, we have methodology or instrumentation available only for looking at ESP at a low magnitude. And we could use some of this high-tech equipment that is around, like shielded chambers, and we could actually find out if some detectable something goes out when somebody affects the temperature 8 feet across a room in an isolated situation. We could get the answers to these kind of questions if we get the money and the facilities to do it.
Thank you, Walt. We will continue here at 258-5394. We're talking about out-of-body experiences. 258-6 degrees at the talk station, 910 KFYI. This is Liz in Phoenix. Hello.
Hi.
Hi there.
I guess I start, huh?
You're on the radio. Isn't this exciting?
I sure am. I am very disturbed about the closed-minded attitude and the skeptical attitude of many people. I am a university-educated person. I have a Master's of Science degree, and I've studied the scientific method and how controlled studies are done. But I also learned during my education to be open-minded and to listen to both sides and to look into both viewpoints. And a few years ago, my mother was in the hospital and had an out-of-body experience. I have never had one. And I became interested in it and started reading about it. I recently have read a book by Brad Steiger called Astral Projection, and it absolutely amazes me. It's all over the place if you look for it. The research is very convincing. There are thousands of cases that are reported of people who have experienced this. And what fascinates me is how other people who are also educated in the scientific method are so close-minded about it.
Yes, I agree with you, Liz. You know, our present self-image that we have here as bodies is limiting and causes dissension among us. You know, but the way it's set up in this society is that we should see ourselves as bodies because we're better consumers if we're focused in on the body. My purpose is to advance human understanding of the essential self and its scope of abilities.
Liz, I thank you for the call. We are out of time. I want to thank our guest, Dr. Janet Lee Mitchell. Your book, where is it located? Where can you get it? And who publishes it?
Anywhere, any store. It's mass market paperback, $3.50. It's out by Ballantine. Out-of-body experiences. Janet Lee Mitchell, thanks a lot for your support.
Thank you. Jim Lippard, chairman of the Phoenix Skeptics, thanks for being with us.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Been a good hour.